So, I'm here today to talk about a couple technical things which actually have huge impact on companies. I guess most of you here either are part of a company or at the very least are developers and work as freelancers until you work with your clients' data. So that will be relevant. So to have everyone ready and focused after this nice coffee break, I have a small video that I guess 20% or 50% of you may have seen. This is what we can talk about, and here's the video. Oh, nice.
So I invited a few of the world's best hackers to try to hack me and show me where my vulnerabilities are. And now I'm going to meet them in Las Vegas for DevClub, the biggest hacker convention of the year. They're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code. They just use a phone and an internet connection.
Do you want to do a sample phishing call?
What's phishing?
Phishing is voice solicitation, and basically what you do is you use the phone to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack.
Let's do it. Who are you going to call?
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider and see if I can get them to give me your email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm going to spoof from your number, so it's going to look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. my husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today, so I'm so sorry I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for uses information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
At gmail.com?
Jessica gets access to my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account.
Jess uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
5127.
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry, so there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my password.
Thank you so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get her fed after this. Alright, thank you.
Holy shit. So they just gave you access to my entire cell phone account.
You're gonna have to go on and change your password now because it's Jess, my name.
And all it took was a crying baby and a phone call.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just a small and good example of what social engineering can do. We actually did see quite a lot of techniques in there, but this lecture, even though my company does provide offensive security lectures to some customers, this is defensive lectures, so we are not going to focus too much on that aspect. But we could see urgency in there. I can't call you back. It has to be done by today. We could see calling back the authority, right? My husband will, well, she didn't say kill me, but she implied, right? And we saw multiple other things. And we're going to take a look at that in order so that you can best defend yourself against those things in those situations. Unfortunately, social engineering is a vector, is an attack that is impossible to defend against 100% if you don't want to live in a cave and be sociable. But you can make life harder for the attacker. Social engineering, I always have at least one or two academic slides in every presentation. So social engineering is defined as the use of deception to manipulate individuals into divulging sensitive information that may be used for illegitimate or fraudulent purposes or to further attacks on a larger entity. So, and that is what we will focus on today. So basically we will consider here that you are part of a larger entity, a company. And you may be one of the targets that they are targeting just because you are one of the employees of that company. They want to get access to data that belongs to that company. And the typical cycle of social engineering when targeting organizations is seen here. Sometimes it's drawn as a three-phase process, but the long version is here. It starts with research. Attacker does active and passive reconnaissance on their target. So they will go online, they will use Google, they will try to understand what have you published, what has your company published about your company. Some companies tend to publish the list of their employees online, including names and surnames. That's a very handy place to start. They will try to use other forms of intelligence gathering. They can try to use active reconnaissance. To use active reconnaissance, they have to actually go inside the site already. So they need something here at first. It can be dumpster diving. I think I have it in one of the slides. So it actually happens, and it's quite fun. You know, if you find the right information afterwards, you go into the trash for the company and you find cool information in there. Some companies now shred information, but not all of them, right? Think, do you shred sensitive information in your company or not before you throw it out? When we've done our research for the first step, just some preliminary minor research, we as an attacker choose our target. We choose a person, because social engineering, I didn't mention that, I think, or did I? Oh, well, I did. So it only works on persons, on individuals. It doesn't work on companies, it doesn't work on computers as a goal, as a target. So they may choose you. They may find your name on the web page. They may find it on LinkedIn, on Google, on social networks, where you have stated which company you work for. And then they will choose you as a target. After they've done that, they will work to build trust or build rapport. They will use pretext for the exploitation phase, and they will align those pretexts or also hard word to explain. So imaginary situations that make sense to you as a mark, as a victim. But before that, they have to build trust. They have to make sure that you think that I am your friend. How long is this phase? How do you think? Building trust phase?
30 seconds.
30 seconds?
As we saw in the video.
Okay, yeah. Usually people go like, oh, okay, it's you know, a couple of weeks. And the reality is that it depends. You cannot, if you're the mark, if you're the target, you cannot filter. We can detect this by the length of the phases, because building trust phase can take from, well, the video was shortened obviously. It can take from a couple of minutes up to a month, 2 months. It depends on the situation and the exploitation technique that you're going to use. If you're in the first cycle here and you just need to get to deeper target in the organization, you could do your research on Facebook. You could choose a target on Facebook. You could use Facebook to build trust, right? How do you friend someone on Facebook that you don't know? Well, there are people who will just accept anyone. I don't know if there still are, because last social network I used this friend system was Draugi, and back then it was cool to have many friends, so everybody just accepted everyone. But I guess now people are more careful and don't accept whoever. So how do you get someone to accept you? You send invitations to as many of their friends as possible, and then when the invitation comes up, they have the right picture, you have the right organization or hometown, and you have 10 friends in common. Great, accept, don't think about that. So that's one way to build trust and as a technical need. And then you exploit it, you talk to the person, you get some information, and you can do more research, and you wind down on your target. But we're going to take a look at different attack types of social engineering. And at the second part of the presentation, we will of course be looking at methods to defend ourselves. Let me set my timer here. I think I forgot it previously. Okay, good. So, what kind of attack types can we distinguish? One is impersonation. And, well, all of them are hard, but this is the one, if you defend against, you look super unfriendly if you're alone in your organization. That is why it's important to have secure organizational culture or security-driven culture in your organization. You can't be the only one saying, hey, you don't know your password, sorry, I'm not going to talk to you. You have to have that in the organization. And impersonation means that attacker calls you and pretends to be someone else. These are three subcategories which are effective for impersonation. VIP, for example, well, it wouldn't usually work with your direct superior, but if the CEO of a large company calls you, maybe you spoke to him or her 1 or 2 times during a couple of years and asked for something, you might think that you need to oblige and you need to help them without proper identification. End user is a typical scenario, right? These are in a way linked, right? End user calling tech support or front desk or help desk, and tech support calling the end user, right? Saying, well, we actually seen these scams on YouTube, right? People calling saying, hey, your Windows has error 9999, I'm gonna help you, please press this button here, and then your computer gets locked down and you have to pay money. That's also a social engineering attack. It's quite blunt, it's not very interesting, but if you just want to lock user's computer and get some money, some ransom out of them, that's the way to go, right? Appeal to authority also can be used. As we saw in the video, it wasn't a great example of this vector, but it basically means that you refer to someone that your mark knows. Mark is the victim here, right? For example, I've done my research, I went through a cycle here, and I built a great profile using some tools. For example, social engineering toolkit. I've built a representation of your corporate structure and some more information. And I know that I'm calling John, and John's boss is called Andrew, and now I call John and I ask him for something. John, I forgot my password, and we really need this project done today. Andrew told me that I have to have it done in 30 minutes. And you need to give me your password. And he goes, John will go like, oh no, come on, there's corporate policy, I can't give you my password. And then you go, well, but Andrew told me it's okay. He's going to cover for you. He's going to say it's okay. And some users will fall for that. They will, okay, my boss told me it's okay. It's not my responsibility. Boss told me through the attacker that you can do that. So that is what appeal to authority is. Reverse social engineering is an interesting concept, interesting vector. It's usually used with tech support, meaning when you're, as an attacker, pretending to be tech support. You break something, and then they call you, right? It's a long process. For example, you would go through a company and find your mark. You would already, in many cases, have to be physically in the company, or would have to have previous phone conversations with your mark. But you could ask them, you can inform them that this is a new tech support number, and if something happens, well, typical example, so you call them, you inform them, tomorrow we're going to be upgraded the network, you might experience some disconnections, if there's a problem, here's the phone number, please write it down, and call us if there's a problem, right? You can pose as an external contractor, external company. And next day, if you have physical access, or if you already have hacked some network device, but you don't have proper access that you need as an attacker, you will disconnect their switchboard, the internet will go down, they might call you, and this will be reverse social engineering. When it works, it's hard to get it to work, but when it works, it's super effective. Because they are the ones asking for help, and they are so much less suspicious of what you can ask them for, because they are the ones calling you. And identity theft. We could have a separate 1-hour presentation on identity theft, but basically it means that someone has stolen digital you and can do online what you can do. There might be complete identity theft when they steal all your social networks, your passwords. Partial identity theft when they have some access there. You can take a look online. There have been some prominent cases. What year is this? 2018. There have been some prominent cases around 5-6 years ago with large social networks before they implemented proper security controls, where people's devices were held ransom for their social media handles. For example, there was most recent case, I think, was actually only 4 years ago. This guy on Twitter, I will not pronounce his surname right, but he had a Twitter handle which was the first letter of his surname, so N. People tried to get access to his Twitter and actually get access for some time. Yes, so it was a large problem. Now it's a bit lower risk of getting this problem appear in the large social networks because they have taken some measures against that on their support side, on their anti-social engineering there. So that's for impersonation. Access attack types for social engineering include tailgating, meaning physical access when you physically want to get on premises. Social engineering tools, tailgating means that you follow someone with a badge. Someone is going in, you follow them. Jake Hyde is a lady who works for social engineering penetration testing company. I would call them like that. I think they are based in the United States, and she and her boss sometimes post nice tweets about live engagements, anonymously, of course, meaning they don't disclose the customer. But there are some fun examples there, and they say what helps avoid questions is lots of coffees, right? People will hold the door for you. They will not ask you to put the coffees down on the floor and get a badge. But they're quite cheap. They actually only get one coffee and everything else is water with empty cups. But no one checks that either. Key duplication. That might include physical keys or digital keys. It doesn't matter. It's faster nowadays to duplicate digital keys, like RFID badges. But that's another social engineering attack. Where's the human aspect in there? You try to get the key from them, or you try to put them in a position where you can easily access their key and put it back without them knowing. Because for a proper enterprise, the key would be revoked, or if it's a physical key, additional controls would be immediately installed if the person reports that the key is missing. And acquisition. So how do we acquire data using social engineering? Eavesdropping? Super effective. you just sit there and listen. Yeah, I have some recent examples, but I think I'll have to skip them here because of the video recording. Shoulder surfing means that you look what the person is doing at a computer, at a smartphone. Remember smartphones. Some of you are using smartphones right now. And maybe the person behind you is looking at what you're doing, at your usernames, at your passwords. So you have to be aware of that. And we're going to take a look at these solutions at the second part of the presentation. And dumpster diving, as I mentioned, of course. Going to the trash, find good stuff, find gold in other people's trash. So for remote social engineering attacks, here we have phishing and spear phishing. Phishing means sending a special email or otherwise trying to direct the user or multiple users to a special, usually website, asking for their personal data or some other kind of information that is of interest to the attacker. Spear phishing consists of two words, and it means phishing specifically for either a person, specific target, or a group of persons. For example, executives of a company. Phishing, so that's voice phishing. Instead of sending a written message, well, written alternative message, obviously. I'm thinking now if post would work. I mean, if I send a letter in an envelope, phishing, I think it would work. Oh yeah, we had that. I think first ransomware was actually delivered that way. Well, Outer didn't consider it ransomware, but there was this. So guy distributed lots of diskettes around the state of a new free tool. I think it was a personality test a personality test that, as a result, gave you a rating of how probable it is that you are detected with AIDS. So he created that test and he put it on diskettes and sent it around for free. And there was a license agreement saying if you install this, you have to either delete it in some amount of days or you will have to pay. And if user didn't delete it, it then, well, it didn't encrypt the disk at the time, but it made the computer unusable for a normal user. And then user had to pay. So yeah, that we can consider that vector as phishing, which actually was carried out using post instead of email back then. Anyway, back to this. So phishing is using voice, using telephone, for example. Application impersonation, mobile apps. I hear it's very easy to do for Android users. You get, in the Play Store, you get an app that looks kind of like the app that your target uses. And they might install that app. Or I've seen it for WhatsApp. On Android, you push an app that says security update for WhatsApp. And you, wow, okay, there's a security update app. You have to install it, and bam, you have the app. Of course, you have to have the permissions and so on. So it's good. Android is actually doing good things. They are limiting the damage the attacker can do. So these are not attack types here. These are vehicles to deliver your attacks. Of course, emails, USB drops. One thing that we do for engagements where clients are ready to pay large enough amount of money, because it's not too expensive, but it looks cool and it's not too cheap. We take the USBs and print with custom logo, either client's logo or client's logo or client supplier's logo, and then we drop those at client sites. Quite better reception, quite more infections we get that way. Even without the logo, we always have someone plugging it in. Instant messages and SMS. Anyone heard about this patch that happened a year and a half ago, I think? August. Year and a half ago, yes. For iOS, they patched three bugs at once. I think it was Trinity, it was called. So basically, some agency in some obscure country, I forgot, was it Israel, I think, sent a phishing SMS to an activist saying, here's the link, click it. And basically just that. And there were weaponized iOS 0 days inside, like 3 of them in chain, so they can they were supposed to silently take control of the device. But as the user was aware that he's being targeted all the time by government agencies, he just forwarded the SMS to security guys, and well, Apple got some patches. Quite fast, actually. I think it was 3 days. Best patch time ever for Apple. But the bugs were quite serious, though. Social networks, of course, and traffic injection. I use VPN a lot, so I haven't seen it lately. But Riga Airports was really well known. Yeah, well known for injecting traffic into their HTTP requests. They were just injecting ads, but still, I think it's kind of not too legal. When you are on an unprotected network, you can get traffic injected right into your HTTP page, and you can get phished that way. Of course, malware and adware are also sometimes used for social engineering attacks, not always. So, okay. So we are about half the presentation in, and now let's look at defenses. I hope that I covered the possible bad things that can happen to people good enough. So here's a definition of OPSEC. This document, I think, is from 1963 or 69. So it says that OPSEC is a concept as strongly as old as war itself. Nevertheless, the fact that poor OPSEC practices have been costly in loss of human life and lost objectives in every American war demonstrates that despite its venerate age, operation security doctrine needs to be learned afresh by each generation. So, OPSEC, of course, has military origins, operations security. But it has found use in today's cybersecurity. And why is that? Humans are the weakest link. As they are in military operations, they are also the weakest link in computer systems security. So, OPSEC principles, 5 OPSEC principles can be easily and are more and more applied to human aspect of IT security. These are the 5 principles, and we're gonna, the 5 steps to take when implementing proper operations security, and we're gonna go through them. They are not hard to understand, but they are super hard to implement. I mean, you can go up to step 4. It's all shiny. Then you get to step 5. When you have to actually apply what you have written down on paper, then it's too hard. How are we going to serve our customers over the phone, and so on. Okay, so first step. You identify the critical information. And I try to outline these 5 steps using questions that you should ask yourself or your colleagues at your company in order to go through the OPSEC steps. So the first step is identifying critical information, and one question to ask is which is the information that loss of it would bring the most damage to your company or to your startup, right? Or which information, losing which information would bring any damage at all, because you want to minimize the damage, of course. If your competitors gain the piece of information, which piece of information would they be looking for? Right? So we have 2 aspects here. You losing access to information and competitors gaining access to some field of information. Well, here are some examples. Passwords, usernames, IP addresses, firewall logs, firewall configuration, research data, research development. If you are a startup especially, you probably have something new to bring to the market. Very interesting for competitors. And analytical data. But those are just examples here, the bold underline in every slide, so you have to think for yourself, for your case. So after we've done with identifying the critical information for your company, you have to look at a completely different aspect, potential threats. Potential threats do not have much to do with the state of your company as much as they have to do with how the market sees your company. But before that, you have to look at a simple thing. What are the current exploits? What are the current vulnerabilities that are active, that are being used on the internet, in the wild? And then you have to look at the threat actors, right? You have to look at competitors, you have to look at some other entities. Maybe you travel a lot. I know that China, there's been public research that China is a country which where state actively helps gain competitive advantage to Chinese companies through corporate espionage. So if you're traveling to China, that might be a concern. I've heard that United States do wide searches of electronic devices on the border. I haven't read any public documents saying what they do with the data, but I've heard that they do search the devices. So each company has their own list of threat actors, of course. Well, some examples here. So some company B is developing the same product as we, and it is rumored that they have offensive cyber capability, so that they have some department or guy or 2 guys or 2 girls that can hack anyone they want. Or we are traveling to China with corporate laptops and we fear that our data will be intercepted. So those are examples of potential threats. Third step is you analyze your vulnerabilities, so your weak spots. What are potential deficiencies of your security process? What in your process, what in your organization could reveal your critical or your sensitive information? And can you fix that? A very important step of this part is thinking like the enemy. Where would you attack if you were to get information from your company from the outside? Not what you'd be looking for, but where would you attack? What would be the vector that, knowing what you know, the enemy might take? Some examples here. Our technical support does not properly identify colors before providing assistance. You might identify that as your vulnerability. Or we don't have a firewall and do not follow secure coding practices. Those are actually 2 different vulnerabilities, but you might identify that as well. Now, for the 4th step of 5, you assess the risk. And you have to assess the risk of each vulnerability, and to do that you multiply every potential threat with every weakness to get the risk. So it's quite a lot of work, right? But if in the previous steps you actually use some numeric system, say 1 to 10, to mark every vulnerability and every threat, you can actually use like Excel to do that, right? So risk is impact times probability. That's security 101. And the example will clear this up for you. I will turn to this one. So I only take a pair here, of course. So impact of touch support not identifying colors is medium. So 1 to 10, we give it 5. We also might explain in document, if you are the kind of company who likes writing documents or needs to write documents, why have you identified this as medium? Because of limited touch support permissions. They can't change their password. They can only like tell you what you can do on your own computer, and then maybe configure a printer. Interesting abilities of company B make it very likely, we put an 8 there out of 10, that they will target us. Therefore, risk is impact times probability. 5 times 8 is 40% out of 100%. And we also have to, after we've done that, we have to answer this question: what measures can we apply for each vulnerability here to actually solve it? Well, to mitigate it or to minimize the risk. And in this case, we can require callers to provide secret phrases when connecting over the phone. Not the best solution, but one that might work for some companies in this example here. And finally, the hardest part: application of appropriate countermeasures. Well, when doing that, remember, you have your list now. You have your list with possible countermeasures from the previous step. You take a look. Maybe you already, while you were doing this humongous amount of work identifying all the vulnerabilities and risks, maybe something was already fixed. You take a look. Have you implemented countermeasures for the risk identified? Yeah. Maybe you have. Maybe you still have to do that. And after you've done that, after you've gone through the slide, you shouldn't see it. Go back to the top, take a look again. Have you actually implemented them, or do you think that you have? What do you need to apply all the required countermeasures? What kind of resources? What kind of help from others? What kind of management support? What hinders application of the required countermeasures, right? What stops you or what makes you slower in enacting those countermeasures? And is it financially feasible? And here, the solution is easy. You prioritize by risk. So you look at the highest risk that you calculated and you start with that. But you also have to look at the financial impact, right? If you have a risk of 50 and you have a risk of 40, and for 40 you can fix it for 1,000, and 50 you can fix it for 1 million, which is your company's yearly budget, then you of course start with the 40, right? It's an art of some kind here. So here's an example, continuing from the previous slide. So our top risk of all the risk is rated at 40%, and it costs 1,800 euros per year in extra workload and lost productivity to fix it. So we will be implementing it starting concrete date and financing from concrete budget. And there you have it. You write it in a document, or if you don't do documents, if you're a standalone developer or if you're a startup, you just start doing that after you've done the calculations. Now, in the remaining 12 minutes, we're going to go back to practical part. This was quite a lot of theory now that I actually looked at the slides that I wrote this morning. And some practical tips now. I hope that each of you will be able to tick down at least 60% of all the tips here and say, yeah, I'm already doing that. I'm a 60% secure. Maybe 80. Maybe if someone has 100%, you raise your hand and then we'll talk. I want to know how you live. So you have to secure the passwords, which includes, of course, we start with password creation. You have to create strong passwords. Well, what is a strong password is an abstract. The answer here is quite abstract, right? You can if you use password managers, then you can just create 30 random symbols as a password. If you don't, what I do, I create a long phrase, right? I still end up with 30, 40, 60 symbols, but it's a phrase, so it's super easy to remember and super hard, relatively hard for a computer to guess. Second part of securing your passwords is using either a password manager or your head. Nothing else will work, therefore, securely storing your password. Yes?
About the long secure password, what do you do with banks? Which, like, I know that I have an account in at least one bank where the limit is like 8 or something similar.
Thank you. So the question was about the long passwords and what do I do with banks, because they tend to limit the passwords. Well, so what happens is usually they crash their website, because I just generate a password of like 100 characters, put it in, it goes in, then you press the button and it's dead. So it doesn't work anymore. But for actual entry part of the process, I use ID card. I don't actually use passwords myself, so it's hard for me to tell. But actually, thank you for the bank question, because previous speaker Agnes did mention a thing about GDPR in your data. And this morning I was just writing, I just sent a request to one of the banks in Latvia asking to delete my data. So we'll see how that goes. I do that a lot actually. I went and tried to do some operations there. They wanted to scan my ID. I said you need to copy my ID, not scan it, and then we got in disagreement. And so we'll see how that goes.
You not get the data deleted because they money laundering.
Yes, but the law of anti-money laundering and anti-terrorism says that they have to copy the document, which I was okay with. Why? Because then I could, in theory, at least write on document something, on top. It's only for use by bank, blah blah blah, which might help, in case they have some rogue employee, which will go off with the scan of my data to superfastcredit.com and get some loan in my name. Well, we'll see. But probably Agnes is right. Probably I will not get the data deleted, but we'll see. We'll see. At least they'll have something to think about. Yeah, well, I answered as best I could. Well, I did not actually. Sorry about that. So, when you aren't able to create long passwords, you have to stop using the system, change the provider, or if you have to use the system, you have to complain somewhere. Try to make them change their ways. So those are the only options. I'm sorry, there's nothing better to say there. There was, well, if your bank or whatever system limits your password length to 8 characters, that's not the worst that can happen, right? Because in that case, you actually know that your password is only 8 characters. I was studying in this university long time ago, and back then it accepted the information system, the main information system for the university accepted any length of passwords. The only problem was when you logged in, it only checked the first 6 characters. So that's a false sense of security, and it's actually worse. Yes.
It still is like that.
Oh, you're saying it still is like that? Okay, thank you. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's about passwords. Don't reuse them, of course. New password for every place. Install latest security updates, especially on end-user devices. If it breaks stuff, get a new device. It's better than living without Drupal update or whatever. There is a problem there which is not for this audience to worry about usually. But personally, I think that security updates, especially automatic security updates, will be the way how state-sponsored attackers will be getting into our devices in the next 10 years. Because everyone will have, Agris, everyone will have trained everybody to install updates or do it automatically, and then government will go to the companies and say, come on, we need to push this different update to John Doe, and John Doe's device will automatically install that update, and government will have access. And then this technology might get stolen by criminals, and then, well, it's a never-ending cycle. Anyway, do not connect unknown devices to your device, USB sticks, for example, or do not do vice versa. Do not go with your device and connect it to unknown networks, unknown other devices, right? Does it work here? Okay. When you are sharing a piece of information, you have to mindfully decide. You have to really think before you share a piece of information, including on social media, but not only. So, if your bank asks you for your personal document, you think if you want to give them the document. Of course, you have to. I mean, it's okay. I think, right, for a bank. If a vendor selling you Coca-Cola in the shop asks you for a personal document, then you probably don't give them the document because they're up to no good, because they don't need the document, right? GDPR, data minimization, and so on. So, practical tips outside the office. When using other networks, always use virtual private networks. That's what I do. I think I haven't, at least my laptop, my phones, I have automatic VPNs everywhere. I haven't sent out any unencrypted communication from my laptops for at least the last 8 years. Yes?
How are you sure that the VPN provider that provides you with the
You're the VPN provider.
I mean, if you're the VPN provider yourself, then okay, fine, but how are you sure that the VPN provider is doing everything as it should? Because it just guarantees you the pipe from your place to his place, and thereon it's still...
Okay, I think it's a very relevant question. It was loud enough, so I'm not going to repeat it. Yeah, well, it's not about me. I'm not a good example of these things actually. And as was said on this side of the audience, I'm my own VPN provider for all my devices, mobile and laptop and so on. But getting back to other users who do not want to do that or cannot do that, well, you can't be sure that VPN provider is doing everything right. There was this one case where I was working in a public school as system administrator, and some guy decided to hack their grades. We have like online systems with grades. Well, we got the IP address, of course. It was some kind of VPN server. We open up the IP address through web browser. It says we keep no logs. We somehow log into the server, and there are logs. Then it turned out that it was one burger chain in Riga, and then we went to the burger chain and nicely asked for the video recordings, which was pre-GDPR, of course. Well, we had data protection law, but companies were less careful back then. You could persuade actually quite well. Actually, when I was around 12 or 13 years old, that's how I got. That's how my teacher caught me. She also, I was doing bad stuff back then. She also called the ISP and asked what's the physical address for this IP addresses, and they just gave it to her. So it's good to have contacts if you're in that kind of work. So back to the question. You cannot know what your VPN provider is doing unless you somehow access and see everything from the inside. But what is important is that you mitigate the vulnerability of your network, your endpoint, or rather of your endpoint's network, right? So where you are at that moment, those people cannot see what you are doing if that's a proper VPN, and you can quite easily verify if it's properly encrypted, right? You do transfer the possible risks to the network from the VPN provider outside, but your problem is that you're trying to solve are the people who are there with you at that network where you are. So that is what you're solving there. Yeah, and nobody asked this question so far, but if using VPN is not possible, well, for example, some countries block VPNs or degrade VPNs, I've seen that myself, then you just don't use shared Wi-Fi hotspots or don't use network at all. I've actually done that. Just say this on the internet. Know where your stuff is. So this is outside the office, right? When you are outside the office, you have to be aware where your work stuff or your personal sensitive data is, especially if you're traveling. This is about everything, right? Everything's everything. For devices and work information, for example, printouts, you should not only know where they are, but you should keep them with you at all times, if it's possible. So even leaving it in the hotel is of course not secure. Hotel is not a safe. Safe in the hotel is also not a safe usually, because you can just shake it and it opens up. I rode a bicycle regularly many years ago, and I was going to park near one cafe, and of course after connecting my bicycle with a chain to their, well, there was this stand, right, bicycle stand. I tried to moderately pull on the stand, and I was left with the stand in my hand. So I decided to go to a different cafe. And a couple of times it happened with hotel safes too. I just, I see the hotel safe, I try to decide if I'm going to put my stuff in there or not, my money, and I just pull it on it and I have it in my hand. There was a question there.
Yes, regarding VPN, what about mobile internet? Do we have to worry about that also or not?
Okay, so the question is, do we have to worry about using VPN if we're using mobile internet, not public hotspots? So, well, 3G and 2G is broken security-wise. Basically, 4G is better. additional benefit of 4G is that even if you're abroad, there is a panel automatically provided between the operators, the donor, well not the donor, the operator you're in and your home operator, so that your actual packets come out from your home operator even if you're abroad. The problem is that 4G is mostly at different frequencies than 3G, which means if you are in an area that doesn't have strong enough signal for 4G, or someone jams 4G, you're immediately dropped to 3G with all the consequences. So I of course still use VPN for 4G connections. So. Okay, and be aware of your surroundings when processing sensitive information. It includes talking on the phone, having a face-to-face conversation, working on a laptop, working on a smartphone, right? Those who are still on their smartphones, there are people behind you looking at your smartphone screen. Okay, now, unfortunately, I'm going to end with two theoretical slides again. Well, at least like middle ground between those slides and the super serious slides. So methodological OPSEC tips, right? So what can you do as a methodology, as a process in your company? You should carry out regular employee awareness trainings. You can consider reminders by email or posters in the office, or just having, you know, if your company delivers free food to your employees, you can have like every week, one day of the week, you can have something in their food saying, be careful, don't eat this, right? Read what you're doing. You can test your employees by carrying out mock attacks. You should make sure that everyone, especially founders and the executive branch, commit to OPSEC. This is important for multiple reasons. If they really commit to OPSEC, then security team has their support and can implement all the measures with ease. Much easier than if they don't have it. Second reason is lower employees down from executive branch look up, if they want or not, they look up to executive branch, to founders, and they learn from what they do, not from what they say. And if they follow proper principles, then it works. If they don't, then it will probably not work. Continuing on. You should discover the surface of your vulnerabilities as it's seen from outside. So it's not enough that you sit with if you sit alone or with your guys and girls in your department and think, okay, so what could be a vulnerability surface? You should also, you can do it yourself, you should simulate it from the outside. Try to do open source recon of your company. Try to do active recon of your company. See what you can get. Of course with permission if you're not in a security role by default. You should carry out a purchase penetration test, which is different from verifying vulnerability surface. This is actually verifying where can the software engineer or working as a hacker get inside the company. Set up technical defenses and countermeasures. Very high level point, doesn't say much, but we did take a look previously at some of the practical measures which can be part of that. Don't forget to manage risk that is posed by contractors and your suppliers. So you should manage your supply chain, right? One thing I do, well, it doesn't work for a company, but as a private person, if I buy hardware, I always try to buy it on the spot. I never pre-order it, because you never know what kind of supply chain process will take place before you go get your hardware. Okay, so that is all I have for today. I think I almost made it in the 45 minutes that I wanted to. 5 minutes over time. So yeah, if there are any more questions, you can ask me some questions. The slides aren't there yet. They will be available in 2 hours and 10 minutes on here. Yeah, and I'm on Twitter too. Thanks. Yes.
Can you go back slide? This one more slide. There's a carry out your purchase penetration test.
Yes.
So we all know that penetration tests are available, like for a person or organization to buy. Is it possible to buy, for example, NSA kind of penetration test? I mean, that would make sense, right? I mean,
So what do you mean by NSA kind of penetration test?
NSA kind of.
I just haven't ordered any.
This, for example, if I have a MikroTik in my home, is it safe to use there? I mean, maybe they would advise me not to use that one at home, exactly that model or that kind of software. Or
well, if you're talking about models, that is not a penetration test. That is of course version control test, right?
That's at the point when you have the information from those guys leaked down to the next guy. But is it possible to get the first-hand access? How much would that cost? I mean,
oh, you want to buy it?
I would be probably interested in.
Okay, so well, actually, for some clients, they want to go really deep and they want to be quite sure, more sure than others, that everything is as safe as it can be. Well, the problem is it's a separate test, right? We've had clients who have ordered tests on equipment or software that they own, not their systems in general. But it's a separate test, right? If you mentioned MikroTik, right? We do a penetration test of your network, and additionally, we can take a look at MikroTik as such. But it will cost more than the penetration test itself, right? But yeah, we can do that, and some companies do that, and some bugs have been reported to MikroTik because of that kind of research, actually.
Because there's like the 4G as well. I mean, it was recently, I would say, like, my memory probably fails me right now, but I would say like 2 weeks ago or 3 maybe, there was an issue with 4G spoofing thingy as well coming into the play, which is, I mean, you shouldn't downgrade it. If you have, for example, a 4G connection right now, you shouldn't probably downgrade it to the 3Gs and 2Gs for a 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, whichever lines is there. So you can probably do it from 4G as well.
I mean, it all makes sense. I'm just worried that for the rest of the audience, they don't know the encryption protocols.
Oh, yeah, there's...
No, that wasn't the invitation to explain, sorry. Well, your main point is that there are some low-level, hard-to-find vulnerabilities which are there.
Yeah.
And we need to take a look at them. It's very expensive. I mean, there are multiple ways you can go, but either way it will cost you $1 million, and we don't provide, literally $1 million, and we don't provide that service, right?
I mean, is there...
You can go to the Rodium and buy those vulnerabilities.
But is there, I mean, I haven't really... I have really no idea how the hell would some people do it. I mean, they would probably dedicate their lives for that stuff. But because there are like lots of things to learn and lots of things to read for that. For example, that 4G thingy. It's not the thing you come up in like 3 in the morning. Oh, right, it works like that.
I think you're not far from there. 10 more years, 20 more years, and you're going to be one of those guys.
There's
basically,
like
what you want is for nation states to do your pen test, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
Yeah, no, that's gonna cost you. It's probably, you can arrange for that. Actually, it's called platform guidance, and it's something that government agencies purchase from pen testing firms whenever something new comes out. They hire pen test firms to tell them whether it's good or not.
But that's not with the NSA guys. NSA guys don't outsource things.
They have their own department.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Silent
guess.
circle, basically.
So,
Yeah.
okay, everybody who want to argue.
Do we have one more question which is not an argument? Yes.
Okay. So I assume you have got different clients from different parts of the world. So
Yep.
from the point of view of the social engineering, how do you look on are our region is more prone to social engineering, or like post-Soviet region is more prone to or better defend to social engineering, like for example in Western Europe?
Okay, so the question was if our region, Eastern Europe, is better defending against social engineering than other regions in the world. Well, unfortunately, I have to say that I'd love to have more clients who are actually looking for social engineering types of penetration tests, but we have relatively little clients, little number of clients who order social engineering penetration tests. and all of them are from the Baltic region for this specific kind of test. So I cannot give you a comparison of this part example, this part in question. But if you look at security penetration tests in general, then the Nordics come up top, then the Baltics, and then the rest of the world, as far as we can test it, with some exceptions, some notable exceptions, of course, where everything is bad. Okay, thank you again very much, and yeah.